Hello, I'm Harold, and this is Amateur Redneck Workshop. And I got a little bit of a different thing to do today than what I normally do. I guess we shouldn't get in a rut and do the same thing in every video. But before we get down to that, I was watching James Kilroy's channel the other day, and when somebody's really into something and they're talking about something they really love, they're really enthusiastic about. Excuse me. It really improves what they have to say. I mean, they can turn what would for me be a boring statement into a really spectacular uh, talk. And James Kilroy has got the antique tap and die bug, and he's really into collecting antique taps and dies. And in his latest Feed the Monster video, he really did a jam up job of telling us about the dies that he had just collected and the history of those dies and the history of the factory. And uh, he really did, an exceptional job. And if you hadn't seen that particular video, you ought to go over there and look at it. Uh, I noticed Tom Lipton had a comment. He says, you're really into that. He said, I detected a little drool there for a minute. So undoubtedly, you'd like James Kilroy's, Feed the Monster video. I know I certainly did. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to sort of show you how I got as far as I got on reloading as to where I'm at right now. And if you don't like reloading videos or you're anti-gun or something, and you just come here for the redneck joke, it's going to be all the way down at the end of the video. So, you can skip ahead about 16 minutes or so and hear the joke if you don't want to see any of the other stuff. But in as much as we're at this point, we're going to go ahead now and get to the reloading part, and then after that's over, we're going to have the redneck joke at the end instead of at the beginning. That's just the way it worked out. Okay? And what I'm doing here is sort of a short cycle of reloading here. I had the other day loaded up about 65 rounds of 45 ACP, and I wound up having to pull the bullets out because I got an overcharge. So I've started now to reload them, so I'm just putting the cases in on the little plate here, loading it up and seating the bullet, crimping it, and I'll show you the process, and I'll tell you how I got to where I am. And where I am meaning not necessarily just this particular case where I'm loading up these rounds that I had to redo. I'm going to tell you how I got this far into reloading. What I started with was 9mm pistol, and I could see that if I was going to use it for competitive shooting and stuff, I was going to have a lot of practice, and that was going to take a lot of ammunition. We're talking thousands of rounds, and that was going to cost thousands of dollars, and that sort of puts a damper on things, especially if you're tight like me and you don't have all the money in the world. So I looked around and discovered there were people that were reloading their old brass, making their own ammo, so to speak. So I bought this Lee press. This is what they call a progressive press because it has 5 stations around it, and there's a case in each station. One of them, the first station, it knocks out the primer. And when I say the primer, here's a, see if I can get it in front of the camera. Here's a case with a fired primer. See the little dent in it? Here's the case with the primer removed. You do that on the first step. Then it rotates around. Another guy goes up to get his primer removed. The one that's had the primer out gets a new primer put in. It rotates. Another one comes on to get the primer removed. Now you've got 3 of the stations filled. The guy on the 3rd station, he goes up, gets flared out, and powder dropped into it. Comes to the next station, you put a bullet in him. He goes up, the bullet gets shoved down, and he crimps into place. Moves to the next station, and this is what they call a factory crimp, and it crimps the brass down even tighter on the bullet. The next step, it falls off over into the little basket where the loaded rounds go. Okay? But before you get there, you've got to do a lot of things. When I started out, I didn't realize the importance of having that reloading press on a real solid, stable surface. I made a reloading table out of one of those Black & Decker fold-up sawhorses, and it was wobbling and jumping, and the powder would jump out of the case, and all manner of things would go wrong, and it was just a miserable situation. So I finally realized that I had to make a table. And that's what this is, a homemade reloading table there. Store my brass down below and other junk. But this table is really heavy. This thing's a couple of 100 pounds or better. And this reloading press is bolted really solid on it, and it doesn't move. Not a bit. So now, no more jerking, no more bouncing powder out of the case or anything. This is good and solid. The second thing that I noticed was that if I bought factory-made bullets like this right here, that when I got through reloading, I was paying as much for the reloaded round as I could get one brand new down at Walmart. Now, I didn't like that too much. So I discovered that I can cast bullets, you know. I got lead, I got the molds, and then I started casting my own bullets. These are 9mm that have been cast, sized, and tumble lubed. They're ready to go. I've got about 6 jugs of these, so I won't be casting any for a while. And one of the things that you're going to need to do, of course, is to make sure you have sizing dies. And the sizing die is just a die that's the right diameter to push that bullet through, so that when it comes out the other side, it's the real official factory size. Now, when I started off, my advisor told me, oh, don't size the bullets, don't size the bullets. Well, that cost me have to pull 600 rounds of bullets. The Lee mold said that it cast them the right size, no sizing needed. Well, Lee still sells sizing dies for some reason, undoubtedly. So what happens if you don't size your bullet, and here's some I found at the range, although I've made some just like them. If you'll examine this thing real close, you can see it's bulged right here. And if you take a bullet gauge and you drop that little booger in there, you can see it don't go. It should go to the bottom of this little groove here, but it doesn't. It's going to have the same effect when you put it in your pistol. It's going to jam up the works, and it'll try to go in the barrel, and you're going to have a heck of a time getting him out of there. Here's another one that's he's bulged, not as bad, but still too bad to use. I didn't make these particular rounds. I found them at the range, but I've made the equivalent, 600 of them for sure. Here's one. He's closer to being right, but he doesn't fit. Okay, and that's why they were laying on the ground at the range. Somebody tried to use them and they didn't work. Here's what I'm doing right now, 45 ACP. This is a factory made round. It goes down in there very nicely. You can see it is even with the bottom of that little trench. I think you can see that, hopefully. Here's one. This is my bullet I cast and powder coated. And you can see he's fitting right to the bottom of that little trench. You need a bullet gauge. I've gone through a lot of trouble dropping them down the gun barrel thinking that was a good gauge, and then later on have the stuff jam. So if you're going to reload, you might as well bite the bullet and get all the stuff you got to get. Get a bullet gauge, get a good scale for your powder. Now these are all sitting here with a new primer in them because I loaded them up, and when I checked to see how much powder I had too much. I was about 20% more. My gun's a plus P, and I can put 10% extra powder in it, which I tend to do, and that's what I'm doing here. But you don't want to go above that, because then you could damage the gun, and you can possibly damage you too. So what I do is I load a few rounds, and then I take a sample, weigh it on my scale here, and you got a digital scale. It weighs in, set right now to weigh in grains. You can see the numbers. You just put the little guy on there, press the tare function, fill it with powder, bring it over here, and you can see how many grains of powder you got. That's the right amount is about half full on that case. And you need to stop probably every 20. I went 60 there without stopping, but what caused my problem is this little device here. A lot of people tell me that it does a good job for them, and it hadn't done a good job for me yet. It's messed me up twice. It's got a little micrometer adjustment on it there, a little scale, and supposedly it's real super accurate. But I guess that depends on what powder you use. Stuff I'm using now, it'll meter right with it when I get started, and when I look back up next time I may be way short, I may be way over. So I've quit using this. I need to do an eBay on him. What I'm using instead is these little discs. The disc slides under the powder dispenser. The hole fills up with however much powder that hole will take, and then when you slide it back over, it goes over the case and dumps the exact right charge of powder in there. And these work right every time. I haven't had a bit of trouble with these. It's just, I don't know, I wanted to get fancy, and that led to problems. You don't need problems. Another thing that you need to do when you get a press like this is you'll want to automate things some. If you look at that funnel there, that's a collator. You pour your brass up there, shake it, and it all falls down into those tubes with the right side up. And then you move over here so you can get a better view of it. A little handheld here. So the bullets come out of that collator onto the little ramp there, and I'll have to get a light. I can see that now. I don't knock everything over. If you'll take a look here, you can see this is the little ramp that the cases slide on. The empty cases, they slide off the end. They go into slots in the little table there, and the first one comes up, gets shoved up inside this die on this station. You can see there's several stations there with dies. If I can get the camera in the right spot. Several stations with dies. This is the one that pulls out the primer. This is the one where a new primer's put in. It goes in from the bottom, so there's an empty hole. Powder gets dropped in here. Bullet gets seated here. Factory crimp there, and then falls out into the little bucket there. Okay, so I learned several things in getting started into the reloading here. Number one, the last operation you do on a cast bullet is to size it. Check your powder every time you get at least 20 or 30 rounds long. Stop, weigh it, make sure it's really working right, that you got the right quantity. Crimp them, and use and use a gauge. It'll tell you for sure. Put every single round in that gauge and make sure they all fit right. If you got one that doesn't fit, discard it. You can pull it, go reload it over again. Okay, so, but in getting here, there was quite a lot of job of learning. I had to make modifications on my reloading press, such as the powder dispenser. I put a little hook here and a spring on this to pull this lever so that it'll dispense powder. When it comes, it's got a chain that goes down here. It looks like one of those chains you get on a ceiling fan. And the darn chain was always breaking or popping off. But this little spring just stays good right there and keeps everything sturdy and steady. And I got from Magic Mike, I got several improvements. I got his little plate that goes on top of the turret there to hold everything steady so that none of that stuff moves around. I got him to do the primer dispenser. He has modifications to the primer dispenser where that it'll actually put the primer in exactly the right spot for everything. And if it doesn't use the primer, it'll pull it back out of the way. In the original setup of this thing, the darn thing will just dump primers in there. If you don't use it, then you'll get two of them and shove them off into the waste hole. Right over here on the other side, that's the primer dispenser right there. You can move over a little. You can see the primers in it, and they slide down a little chute and go down into the primers. See that white piece? That's the little chute that moves them. It moves them sideways under the case, and then a little ram, which is activated by this. A little ram activated by this lever will shove the primer up inside the primer hole. And when all that goes good, well, you make a lot of progress. This is not a very expensive reloading press. It's a Lee. It's down on the bottom of the line. But if you modify it some, you get a pretty good, service from it. It loves reloading 45s. Not wonderful on 9mm, but it really loves 45s. And you can learn some modifications to make it load 9mm good if you go check Magic Mike's website. So just to back off from this thing and go back over all the little things that I said there. If you want to reload economically, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get your own molds or else buy precast bullets. Now I've got some that I bought. They're probably down in here somewhere. Where are they? Should have been prepared for that. I've got them someplace. Here we go. Here's some commercially made bullets right here that I bought from a guy up in Amarillo, and they're really great. Good quality, and the prices are really good. I think they were probably around 5 cents a piece. These are polymer coated bullets, 45 ACP, and they'll serve you good. They're a little bit lighter than, well, no they're not. They're 230 grain bullets, which is right for shooting bowling pins. But like I say, I cast my own bucket full because I couldn't wait to get started on it. I hadn't yet used up all of these other ones, but it's fun. It'll take you all afternoon to make a big box of bullets like that mixed nut box. But if you're doing them 6 at a time, they work pretty fast. So anyway, I guess that probably about covers everything here. I guess I'll go on and load these bullets, and I may not be back with the video till after Christmas, so I want to say Merry Christmas to everybody, and I'm not left yet. I'm going to give you a redneck joke before I go, but give me a couple of minutes to figure out which one. All right? So if you like making your own rounds, you want to get into competitive shooting, and you don't want to go broke making the thousands of rounds you need for practice, buy a press. Now, I'm not selling this. You can buy Hornady, Dillon, tons of others. But anyway, we'll knock off the reloading talk, and we'll go to the redneck joke. The boss lady came by and opened the window to kind of air it out in here. I think she's trying to tell me something. Anyway, uh, we get down to the redneck joke. It seems that Bubba and Sue Bob had been married for a number of years. They just couldn't get along, so they decided to get a divorce. And they would they'd still be cousins, and all that after the divorce, but they wouldn't be married anymore. So anyway, they're down at the courthouse with the judge, and the judge says, well, tells Bubba, he says, I'm going to grant this divorce here, and since you got kids, he says, I'm going to give her $800 a month child support. And Bubba says, oh, Judge, that's mighty decent of you. He says, heck, he says, I think I'll kick in a few bucks every month myself. He might not have caught on to how that works. But anyway, if I don't see you guys till after Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And you know how unreliable I am. I might be back with another video or two before the first of the year, and then I might not. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button and keep on keeping on.